and gentlemen, y'all see the time, y'all see the gameplay. We back, boys. JoJo is back on. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the news was announced last week. Pretty sure last week that JoJo is indeed coming back, and it has a much better time slot now, 12:30 instead of 2 in the morning. So that's nice. But yeah, man, JoJo's back, baby. I'm so glad to have JoJo back. I was kind of worried. I was like, yeah, when's it gonna come back? I checked the dates. It's only been about like two. It's been like about 2 months since the last episode aired. But yeah, man, JoJo's back, and I couldn't be happier. So now, before you guys remember, you guys of course have been watching my reaction, my reviews before we had this long delay thanks to the virus. You guys know that I was talking about Paranoia Agent because it was airing around the same at the same time. Well, as you guys may know, the show ended last week. So let me give you guys my quick thoughts on the show before we jump right into the episode. So overall, it was kind of funny because, like, legit, right when JoJo stopped airing, it was just Paranoia Agent I was watching, just Paranoia Agent. That's when the show went over the deep end a bit, because like before, it started off as this kind of like mystery on who is Little Slugger and everything. Then Satoshi Kon takes the show off a fucking cliff and just goes in a completely different direction. Only Satoshi Kon could make this work, and what all of this kind of revolves around, the creation of Little Slugger, who is he, what is he, all that shit. Only Satoshi Kon could make that shit work, man. I won't get into it for spoilers for you guys that still have not seen Paranoia Agent. But yeah, man, that was absolutely fucking crazy. Like, you had this one episode that was explaining the ins and outs of anime production. You had weird shit with like the detective and his partner, with his wife. Bro, it got fucking batshit insane in those later episodes, man. Especially the last couple. That's when it really went fucking crazy. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I even watching? It was a fantastic show, man. I highly recommend you all check it out if you guys have not already. Final verdict, 10 out of 10. Anyway, guys, enough we talk about Paranoia Agent. Let's get back into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind. But before we jump into JoJo, there's got one other thing about Paranoia Agent I gotta say is that suicide episode, though. Satoshi Kon, you absolute mad lad. And you could tell this was made in the early 2000s, because, ooh, if they tried that now. Oh boy, bro, I'm surprised no one told me about that episode. I would have gladly reacted to it. My God, that one scene in the forest. Ooh, yo, y'all saw Twitter that day when that episode aired in Toonami. Woo. We all have the same reaction for us at first. This is the first time us seeing it, and I'm like, what the fuck? Anyway. Enough of that, let's just jump right in, ladies and gentlemen. So, we start this episode off, we got Mista and Narancha, they're running away, trying to get back to the boat to, get away from the boss and everything. So we then head over back to Giorno, Bucciarati, and Trish, and so they're walking, so they're kind of like searching around. They now have the boss identity now, and I don't know what they did to it, because if I remember correctly, it was, the imprint of it was on the statue itself, and it was kind of like the back of like a concave cover or whatever, where you kind of just see the outline. Here it's like fully 3D, like it's an actual sculpture. Like it's a head sculpture. So I don't know if Giorno did some shit with like fucking Golden Wind, where he like pulled it back or something, but it looks like now a fully formed head. Or like a stone head, whatever you want to call it. And it looks kind of rubbery from what Trish was doing with it, so they will explain how that happened, but if y'all know the answer to that question, please tell me in the comments. If y'all read the manga or something. We'll explain like some data book or something. Anyway, so they're obviously searching the records for any matches. They of course can't find shit, because why the fuck would they? The boss has made a career out of making sure no one knows who the fuck he is. So as they're looking around, they're kind of like, they've almost kind of given up. They tell them to go check the death records. This because they can't find anything with like fingerprints or whatever. So they look for the death records, see if they find any matches, maybe he fights his own death. Nothing. They couldn't find a criminal record, no death record, nothing. So Bucciarati is about like pretty much just throwing his hands there and be like, I give up. But then, right then was their time of most need, a voice comes from the computer saying that he's offering to help them. And of course, Butcher's like, oh shit, we're being tracked. Cut the communication, Jordan. And right before he does, he says, wait, I'm trying to help you. Don't you want to know how to defeat Diablo? So now they kind of like stop and they kind of listen to him and they're like, oh, so that's his name, Diablo. And so they're kind of talking, they're wondering if they should trust them, but they're like, just because you know the name, that doesn't really expect me to trust you, so Jordan will cut the communication. Jordan goes again, but then he also knows that the stand also is a time travel one. They like manipulate time or however the hell Emperor Crimson works. I still don't know how that fucking stand actually works. It's very confusing. Anyway, so then they start to listen to him. First, Bucciarati asks for his name. He obviously won't give it to him, and he tells him to meet them in Rome. And he's like, you're already asking for personal visits, fam? We just met you. And he's like, and so they're kind of like, and so then he tells them about this item that they're most likely familiar with, which is, of course, the stand arrow. The different type of stand arrow that I'm not going to say the name of. I do know how it works, or at least kind of know how it works. I know what it's called. And if you've seen the gameplay, you've probably already known, or if you've seen or if you saw the screenshot that was thrown all around when the show aired last year around the end of it, you probably know what this arrow, how this arrow works, or what it's used for. So, I'm still, just in case some of you have avoided it and for some reason you're not looking at the gameplay, I will, not say anything. But anyway. So, so they decide that afterwards. They kind of tell him that he has a stand arrow. They're kind of like wondering like, how does he have the stand arrow? And they said this arrow is different from a typical stand arrow, and that it contains wisdom and shit. So they finally bite, and they're like, all right, we'll join you. We'll meet you in Rome. And so he said he'll give them the advice and tell them everything once they get into Rome, but not a second before. And only one of them gets to show up. Only one of them can possess this knowledge. So then afterwards, you see Mista and Larancha. They jump on the boat and hightail it out there. We then head over back with good old Doppio. And he's like, he's looking for his phone again. He's like, I said, and he's like, hey! And he talks like this girl. There's these three, like right in front of him, there are these three girls, all carrying like ice cream cones, minding their own damn business, and just chilling. They're just walking, minding their own damn business. And then here comes Dope. You'll be like, hey! Where do you get kicks taking my phone? That's mine! Beat it, friend! These three girls just go, hey! And run off, and I'm like, bro. Why does he think everything's a phone? Like, I wonder if that's ever going to get explained on why Doppio thinks a fucking ice cream phone is a cell phone when he's making the sound. I wonder if that's ever going to get explained. The whole thing with schizophrenia or whatever that the boss is suffering from has made him definitely instantly makes him one of the more interesting villains of JoJo. One of the more interesting anime villains I've seen, period, kind of, because of that. Because there's very few villains that you ever see with like schizophrenia or multi-personality or whatever. The only other one I can think of is the Horde from Split. But that's about it. Or Kevin Wendell Crumb, if you want to be more technical. But anyway. So yeah, he gets the phone, and of course it's a boss. His eyes shift and everything. He's like, strange. Doppio, look over at Bucciarati's crew. One would think that the loss of a dear comrade would alter their composure. And yet, not a speck of hesitation haunts them. Check back to Obakio's last location and look around. Something is off. He's like, yeah, I got it, boss. What do you think is happening? And so he goes back. But actually, right before, while we see Mista driving off on the boat, we get this amazing like half dissolve shot of Emperor Crimson and Doppio, and it looked really fucking cool. So props to the director, whoever was in charge. But that shot looked fantastic. So he goes over there. Obviously, don't really find much except this memorial. So he's like, I know. Damn it. They know something I don't. And Doppio's like, wait, what? They know something? They know something you don't, boss? How is that possible? And he goes on about how, they tells him that he needs to investigate, figure out where they're going, and he tells him to bring Capilio, I think his name was, and Secco. I believe their name was Capilio and Secco. We'll talk more about them because, oh boy! Yikes, they are some of the craziest motherfuckers I've ever seen in anime, let alone JoJo. So we'll talk about them in a minute. But anyway, yeah. So they go over. So he tells him. He says like, "I wish I wouldn't have to rely on those traps, but alas." So he's like, "All right." And he also goes on about fear. That the only way to deal with fear is to crush it. So go. So take care of fear and persevere. Whatever. That is true. That is true. And it truly means to be alive. But anyway, we head back to Mista. They're wondering like, should we even trust this guy? But Butcherod says to go to Rome. So I guess we're going. And so the dude kind of explains a little bit more about the stand arrow and how the stand arrow, I guess, in itself works. So, and then he mentioned like 4,000 years ago, or like however long ago it was, in a place in Greenland, there was this crater, and that this team of investigators went to check it out. 2 of them got infected with some kind of illness, and they turned into like these monstrosities of flesh and whatever. And one of them ended up like firing off like this electric bolt that took a couple of the digits off the surgeon, I believe is what he said. So they're going after that. They go look around. They kind of investigate. They kind of find out that it was actually a virus infection that's like thousands of years old that lied within the crater, and it works kind of like natural selection where it kind of just it works that way, but like most of the people that get it don't survive, but the few they do get supernatural, get powers, i.e. stamps. And they go on about how this guy that wanted to like be closer to God or something, that's how he found out about it, and that he would use this rock, and that's how he made the stand arrows. Pretty interesting stuff. And I like this one. I like the shot here. This was like really cool. But they show a shot of the stand arrow, and then it look all around it are the silhouettes of the Stardust Crusaders, who you guys know is where Stan's got first introduced in Part 3. I thought that was a nice little callback there, so props to Iraqi for that one, or whoever's idea that was. That was really cool. I like that. And so Butch writes like, all right, your argument is your explanation is sound. Very well. And he also realizes like, if anyone found out our conversation, that'd kill you. So very well, I trust you. Where do we meet? And he says the Colosseum of Rome, and that he'll be there no matter the time. And like I mentioned before, only one person can go there to get the knowledge, because nobody needs this. No one knows about this knowledge or whatever. So they go over there, and they go over to where by Rome on the way to the Colosseum. Misa parks the boat, and over there they're kind of like searching for convey, looking around the area, making sure everything's all good. And then they find these 2 drunks. One dude is like hugging this faucet or whatever, be like, "Oh, I'm gonna piss my pants! I'm gonna piss my pants!" And I'm like, what the fuck is this? I didn't know this dude was trying to piss, and the other guys like try to pull him off like it's not toilet. And he goes over to this other thing that looks like a mailbox. See the silence right here, man. Yeah, he starts pissing in it. God, I hope no one's mail was in there, man. Oh, Lord have mercy. But yeah, he starts pissing in there. He's like, see, man, it's right over here. And so Misa's like, yeah, we'll wait till these drunks leave before we move on. So we see them, and he finally pulls the dudes off, and but only it's like the front part of his body. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys know I was live tweeting. I was like, what the fuck? So they go over there. So he pulls him up, and he's like, wait. And first time we see that his hand, his leg's still there, and legs are still there, but the top half of his body is gone as he's going up. And Misa knows it, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, but now I can't reach my pee-pee because it's down there stuck in my zipper. And then the dude, I guess in his drunken state, finally realized that half his body is busy. He's like, fuck this shit out, man. Fuck this shit out, man. No thanks. I'm gonna get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit out, man. Nope. Fuck this shit out, huh? All right, man. And jumps over the stairways, and then his legs just like. They just disintegrate on impact, and then they both die, and they were like, what the fuck? So then we head over back to Capelio, I think his name, Capelio, Cecilia, whatever the hell it was, start with a C. So they go over there with him, and they're right there with Secco, and he tells Secco to make sure the camera's on, it's necessary for my work, you know how pissed off I get if it isn't running. And then right after there, then we head over and we see his face, and then we go right into commercials. Man, it was nice to finally see that transition again. I mean, we don't, not on Toonami, we don't get the transitions between the commercials where it says where we get a character, then their stand and their stats and everything, which I wish Toonami kept those, but hey, whatever, they have their own little commercial bumper, so I guess that's why they don't use them, but whatever. Sometimes we get them, but not all the time. And it was also nice to hear that OP again, man. I'm so happy that JoJo is back on Toonami, man. Y'all have no idea. And good thing, too, because they're still the worst Part 6 getting announced. It probably won't get announced till probably next year, probably. Maybe even later because of the pandemic. Who knows? But anyway, after that, Chocolata, that was his name. Chocolata was his name. So cute. We get Chocolata's backstory. So we find out the dude is aged, he's like 34 years old, and he used to be a physician. Or 2 years ago, he was fired as a physician from the hospital, and that, he was then picked up by Passione from the boss after he got their stand and everything. He suffered a humiliating fall from grace, said the narrator, which, man, I miss hearing the JoJo's narrator, man. Like, I love the dub voice of the narrator for JoJo. He is so good. I love hearing his voice. So glad to hear him back, man. Man, it's good to have JoJo back. Anyway. It's gonna be weird when I watch Part 6, because when Part 6 drops, I'm watching that sub. I'm not gonna wait for the dub. I'm gonna watch that sub with everybody else on Fridays and shit, so... Don't know how that's gonna work, but hey, whatever, man. I'll get used to it. Anyway. So, we find out that actually Chocolata, what actually ended up happening, was not a minor, because that's why he was fired, that ended up killing a patient. We find out that, nah, this man is the Joker on fucking steroids. Yeah, he is one sick motherfucker. He is one sick bastard, ladies and gentlemen. So we find out that apparently the dude would usually misdiagnose people and would misdiagnose healthy patients to get them on his operating table. And then one other thing he would do is like, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Is that this man would also lower the anesthesia for his patients so that they would wake up in the middle of surgery, and then we see this dude, he wakes up, he's screaming, and then we have Chocolata holding the man's, I guess, fucking intestines or something, and I'm like, God damn, bro! Jesus Christ. So then we get a little bit of a flashback back to when he was a kid, and then he was always at the top of his class, and then at age 14, he would start volunteering at a nursing home. And so what he would do, he would like misdiagnose patients, give them like the wrong medicines or whatever. And another thing he would also like, he tests like he's carrying around this old guy in a wheelchair. He takes him off into like this flower area. And he says, "Your family tells me you're nothing but a burden, and they can't stand the sight of you." This dude's like, and he's like shocked. He's like a little horrified by what he just heard. And then there says, he would also tell venomous lies. I love him. So, anyway, he gets over there. So anyway, he like checks over there where the patient is, I guess, in this place. And the dude like killed himself in the bath. He's like got tears down his eyes and everything. He's like, oh. And Chocolata's out here filming this shit like his name is like he's fucking Logan Paul. And he's like, yes, with like this fucking smile, like with this very Joker-like smile on his face. And I'm like, yes, this guy is sick. So then we get a little bit farther in there. After he claimed 9 lives, why 9 and not 10 or 5 or 3? Why that number? Who the hell knows? And after he claimed 9 lives, he became a doctor and became a physician, because that means he would get closest to death, because he gets the most exit he gets watching death in action, and it gives him like some superiority or whatever when he like kills people and whatever, and he feels like he truly understands the mind of man or whatever shit he's spewing. So then we find out a little bit more about Sekko. And the only thing we do know about, other than just being his trusted companion, is that he's the cameraman. Is that he pretty much was one of his former patients, and he's just, doing his bidding or whatever. That's pretty much what his thing is. So after that, we then have her back to Doppio. He's on a plane over to, I'm assuming, Rome, and he's talking to the boss, and the boss tells him, "Listen, Doppio. Well, it's up to Chocolata and Sekko to actually take down Butarati's crew. You must get there as soon as possible. I rarely give in to revulsion, but for drabs like them, I'll make an exception. I expect he'll reduce Rome to rubble in his wake." And so he says, and then Doppio comes in, he's like, "Yo, you think he's gonna go overboard?" He says he probably will, so he needs him to go over there to actually get them, while their job is to actually stop them. He needs to make sure that they don't find out what Trish knows, or what Butarati and his crew know what they're looking for in Rome, for obvious reasons. So he doesn't want them to know, so he's entrusting Doppio with this mission to do that. So then we hover back to Misa and the others. They're looking around, still surrendering. There's so much death, and they can't figure out. We also found that there's this mold shit on Abakio's Abakio's 6 feet under. But Mista's hand so he's like, what the hell is this? They're looking around trying to figure out what's this. They like look around trying to figure out where it's coming from. They can't find anything else other than dead bodies. They mention how it's just indiscriminately just killing motherfuckers left, right, and center, and all that shit. We then look around, we see Bucciarati, they're kind of confused on what's going to next, what's Giorno, and everyone else just wondering what to do. Laurentian decides to jump back on the ship to try and move to a different area to get there. Once he does, the mist, that stuff starts to cover him all over his body, and he's like, what the hell? And then he gets on the turtle, Bucciarati, Trish, and Giorno all get it, and then we kind of go back, and then Lisa's kind of just standing there, just wondering like what the hell to do, and then we have her back to Chocolata, and we find out about his stand, and it's called Green Tea. Interesting stand name. I wonder what his original name was. Maybe it was a reference to Green Day. I don't know. Well, that wouldn't work. No, it couldn't be, because this was made back in the 90s, I believe, was when Part 5 came out. Was when it was airing, and Green Day didn't become a thing until like the early 2000s. Maybe they were a thing in the late 90s, but we all knew them for the early 2000s, so I thought it was a reference to Green Tea. So I still find that name, but it's kind of fitting and kind of not, because he's green tea. It works. He mentions something about his like little quirk, and that's the trigger, because Misa tries to go extend his hand out to Laurentian, but Giorno tells him to stop and to not extend his hand because there's a trigger. And the trigger is because it's similar to this fungus. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. I don't even really remember. It was like Cecilio fungus or something. I forget the hell it was called. But it's this fungus that takes home inside the host, and then once it goes to a lower area, bam, that's when it kills the host, and these spores come out. It reminded me a lot of that virus, the virus that The Last of Us is based off of, that creates the clickers and everything. I don't know if this is the same fungus, but they're at least very similar. Anyway, which I always found that kind of interesting. The Last of Us was based off an actual like kind of thing, but for animals, but it doesn't affect humans, and made it actually affect humans. Anyway, I'm going off topic here. So they find out because he lowers his hand a little bit, and boom, it starts to get his fingers. And then then Bucciarati tells Laurentian to make it back to Mista and go. He tries, but his leg just like kind of disintegrates, and he tells him to throw the turtle. So he tries to throw the turtle, but he doesn't get much because his fingers disintegrate once he tries to throw it off. And Mista says, it's right. You got it right in the perfect location. You got right where I need to be. And so what he does is fires Sex Pistols. He fires them off, and they go for the gas tank on the boat, and which then propels Laurentian back forward onto the ground, and Bucciarati gets out of the turtle. How this worked and it didn't kill Laurentian from the explosion, I don't know. But whatever the case may be, they are back on the high ground, if you will. And then we get back to Chocolate. He's like, this is very interesting. He has like this huge smile on his face while Seko is filming it. Creepy as shit. Will probably be on the thumbnail when I get to it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we get the trademark "to be continued." Yeah, man, I miss seeing that low-key. Anyway, and here in the ED again was so good, because that ED for Part 5, the second one anyway, that's fire. Straight fire. And it's actually pretty sure it's like the first time JoJo was ever switched an ED in one show. But anyway. So yeah, man, overall, this episode was fucking fantastic. JoJo is back on Toonami. Dub work was once again phenomenal from the dub cast. Yeah, man. So yeah, overall, I'm gonna give this episode a 10. No, actually, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I was thinking about 10, but I was like, maybe it's not that good. I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more Chocolata. He seems like an interesting villain. It's gonna be curious to see how they take him out. That should be fun. Anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you feel like it. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.